think the first thing that we wanted to dive into here was talking a little bit about, this whole thing with Caleb Williams, the whole situation. I think, there were some rumors over the weekend that, with the signing of Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, that might be the impetus to get Caleb Williams to request a trade. We've heard that, maybe he doesn't want to be a Bear from Colin Cowherd, others around the field. I mean, yet to this point, we haven't seen anything super solid, but there is that element of doubt here now creeping in for Bears fans, Bears analysts, everybody. So Wayne, I just wanted to ask you first and foremost, what do you make of all these rumors going around? Are they true? Are they false? And how do you feel about it if they so happen to be accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like part of this, maybe this is like the conspiracy theorist in me that's like, I feel like Caleb Williams' camp is trying to force their hand to get Caleb in DC. I think that's kind of what they're going at. Uh, it sounds like there's been the whole, I guess, ground zero of everything is that Colin Cowherd's been in communication with Caleb Williams' camp, and so Caleb Williams' camp is going to feed whatever it is that they want Colin Cowherd to talk about over there. Like, you're not going to just talk. You can talk to anybody. Why are you going to talk to Colin Cowherd about anything, about any feelings or any doubts, anything at all? You can talk about the weather. You can talk about cars, but you're going to talk about where potentially, like, Caleb Williams, he's not really feeling the Bears or whatever. Like, no, that's the last thing you want to do. So I feel like they are utilizing Colin Cowherd as a pawn. I think they want to go to the Commanders. I think there's a lot of movement even from the Commanders side. Is it collusion? I don't know exactly. It's hard for me to speculate, but it feels like a lot of collusion's happening of Caleb Williams' camp talking to Colin Cowherd, forcing the Bears' hand, and then also the Commanders obviously getting Cliff Kingsbury, offensive coordinator, had that relationship with Caleb Williams at USC for the quarterback's coach. So I feel like a couple of things are having here, and then the Bears, this might actually benefit the Bears though. It's like, okay, if you're going to force our hand, we're going to want everything from you. Like, you might as well. You've showed your hand, and we're just going to ask for everything for that, from moving from the second to the first overall pick. So I think that's just my feel on it. It's like, okay, we'll make lemonade out of this. If it's making Bears fans hate Caleb Williams more, great. That's totally fine by us. I think that's part of like what has sparked our discussions internally here about, oh, maybe let's see if we can do stuff without Caleb or maybe Justin Fields. So I don't know. That's my initial thoughts on that. I think Colin Cowherd's a pawn, and I think also Caleb Williams' camp is just kind of forcing a trade away from the Bears here.
Yeah, I had a slightly different reaction to it. I feel like this is like one big game of telephone. I feel like Caleb Williams and obviously Cliff Kingsbury have a relationship. Caleb was congratulating him on IG on getting the job in Washington. Obviously, Caleb went to high school in the DC area at Gonzaga High School. So there's a lot of like ties here, for, some good reasons for why he'd want to come home. I feel like in some ways, maybe he was, if his camp was talking to Colin Cowherd, maybe he could say something like, yeah, Caleb would love to play, with Cliff Kingsbury, or, wouldn't that be cool if Washington happened to grab, Caleb after a trade with the Bears or something like that. I don't know how, these little messages get around and start to get, firing away, but I feel like it gets embellished a lot once you get it to the press, and, people want to make it seem like there's this real, drama, there's a controversy, like he doesn't want to be a Bear, like, etc. But I feel like Caleb was pretty quick, and his camp was too, to like bat down some of those rumors and kind of come back and say, like, we're not going that far. Caleb hasn't said anything about not wanting to play for the Bears, like, etc. I just feel like I have to see something official from his camp saying like he does not want to play in Chicago to get really crazy over the smoke. So I don't know, man. I kind of have like tempered feelings about it, because when I think about it, thinking where Washington would have to go, to the Bears with a trade package, like you're saying, it's going to be an absolute haul. If I'm Caleb Williams, like number one, if they're giving up multiple picks in this year's draft, maybe one or two extra firsts in the next couple of drafts, going forward. Maybe it's a star player. Maybe it's, Deron Payne. I've heard Terry McLaurin. I've heard other folks being mentioned. Like, why would I want to walk into, the Bryce Young situation from last year, just knowing what kind of leverage the Bears may have? The second thing I'd point to is just why would you want to go back home to start off your career? I mean, I feel like there are some rare occasions like Derrick Rose going to Chicago where it absolutely works out. If we think about Washington, Dwayne Haskins was from, Maryland and kind of grew up a Skins fan, and that completely, bombed. And I think there's a lot of situations where, maybe playing for your hometown team brings a little bit too much pressure. Maybe it brings extra distractions. There's a lot of things that could, play against Caleb if he happens to, put all of his chips in, say, I want to be a commander. And finally, I mean, what would it be like to be a commander? I mean, I feel like this is an organization that's had a ton of issues over the last 20 years. I mean, Dan Snyder and, just thinking about all, the L's they've taken under center at quarterback along the way there. They're very similar to the Bears in that sense. Like I thought they were always good at, you know, um, getting a top running back, putting together good secondaries as a team. But this is a team on the decline. This is a team that needs a ton of work. Obviously, with Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, new folks like taking over in the ownership group, like that's great too. But I don't know, man. All those kind of reasons put together, I think it just got out of hand a little bit too quickly, and I want to just kind of let this develop a little bit further before I, get too panicky about it, like some Bears analysts have been.
Yeah, so I mean, I get all that for sure. And if I am Caleb, I mean, I'm not Caleb, but if I were in Caleb's situation, I should say, I would, I would look at what do the Bears have, what do the Commanders have, and I would probably be like, yeah, I would love to probably go with the Bears. As you were talking about the cap space, the draft capital, there's some young talent, DJ Moore there too. So there's a lot more building blocks in favor of the Bears. Obviously, I think a lot of people talk about the Bears and how they just haven't been able to develop quarterbacks. I think that's like the one thing that if I am Caleb Williams, it's like, yeah, would I want to go there? But if I'm a true, I guess, battle tested warrior, like all the confidence in the world, which I think Caleb, everything I've heard from him, it sounds like he's not short of confidence at least. That he would take up that challenge of being like that first 4,000-yard passer for the Bears, like their franchise quarterback that the Bears have always been wanting and desiring. So that's what I would probably be more so gunning for. That being said, it's like, okay, hometown team, yeah, I think there's a lot of athletes that want to play for their hometown team, but at the same time, if I'm a professional, like I would be professional about it. Like I would definitely want to be best situation possible. Good team, good surroundings, and the Bears, they've at least put together pretty good offensive staff. With Shane Waldron, Thomas Brown, Kerry Joseph, the quarterbacks coach, former I think it was like CFL or Canadian Football League like champion or something like that. So some talents or some good coaching, I think, for him to succeed. And then the draft capital and salary cap that we have talked about before. So I don't know. I would feel more welcome there, but it's like, how is any of this getting out? I think to Colin Cowherd, like I would definitely be so careful. Again, you can talk to Colin Cowherd about anything, or you can talk to anybody else in this world. But why like the guy with the biggest voice in the sports world these days? Like I don't know why I would even be tempted to chat with him about anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it went down. I don't know who talked to Colin or how he, came up with his story. I mean, it almost feels like a lawyer kind of arguing his own, evidence. Like maybe he doesn't actually believe it, but he's like, "Hey, I've got enough here to build a case." And like, I want to be the first one to put that out there, but it's weird because in the week to follow, we've heard like Adam Schefter coming out and saying, he's almost solid that the Bears will draft Caleb Williams at 1-1. Mike Tannenbaum off Get Up was basically like, you know, if the Bears want to take him, like they'll take him because his options are like he can pout and whine about it, he can sit out, he could do whatever he wants, but he can't return back to college once he declares. So there is some leverage here that the Bears have to, you know, not to say we want to strong arm somebody into like fitting into our team and our culture because that's a terrible way to start it, but I will also say if Caleb Williams like wants to dodge this whole situation, just go to Washington. Like to me, that's not a winner's attitude, man. That is kind of building off that story that you know we're a little bit concerned about. You know, being a, kind of like on the Caleb Williams watch right now because you know we've seen a lot of things around immaturity. You know, we can go through all the cases again, but if he was to ask out, go to Washington, like that's another thing that just feels like a Caleb first decision versus something that's like, hey, I'm for the betterment of the team that selects me. Like I'm going to go to the place that's seriously set up the best to win. Like there's no argument there, I think, between Chicago and Washington. So if he was to dodge it again, I think that's another thing that would make me feel pretty confident about not having to take the guy because you don't want a guy like that on your team if you know he's kind of asking out of situations and stuff. Like what happens when things get tough in Washington? Is he going to be raising his hand for you know a trade or something else further? So yeah, man, I don't know. I guess you know. Do you have any other thoughts on this? Because you know we'll walk into another part of our you know shoot here moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I know the NFL is all about drama and everything like that, but man, like, why it's like, all right, this quote unquote, generational quarterback that has fallen to our laps is like given these kind of red flags now of does he want to play with us on top of like all the quote unquote prima donna type of stuff he's done before, kind of off the field with fingernails and stuff like that. It's like, come on, man. Like, and that's the thing about Chicago sports fans that they're very hard on whoever it is. They definitely are. We're kind of a blue collar type of town, or at least we appreciate that blue collar mentality. It's like I think that Sinatra said it best. I think he said something along the lines of how LA is all flash, New York is all talk, Chicago is work, and I think that's where a lot of fans, Chicago Bears fans, just want Justin Fields and doesn't want any of the stuff that Caleb Williams is bringing, no matter how talented he is. So I don't know. It's just kind of a bad start to this whole situation about possibly joining the Bears. So yeah, just a lot of drama that just is completely unnecessary.
Yeah. Again, man, it's getting eyeballs, it's getting attention. I feel like that's part of it here. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with the situation. But we'll kind of hold out hope and see you know what Caleb decides to do. I guess with the rest of this time that we were putting together for this, you know, episode, we are thinking about scenarios where what if Caleb asks out of you know Chicago and you know is traded to Washington. We are stuck, you know, with Justin Fields and any of the other, you know, decisions we could, you know, make. I feel like at this point, from the fans in Chicago, all we ever hear is Caleb Williams, or do we keep Fields and build upon it?